Hi, welcome to the Visionista Podcast. I'm your host, 𝐂𝐨𝐯 of Noir Marketing and PR. This podcast is for entrepreneurs where we talk about business and work-life balance. Hi, this is 𝐂𝐨𝐯 with the Visionista Podcast, and I am here today with my good friend, Tiffanie Demasters of People's Insurance.
Thanks for having me, Jessica. I am so glad to be here. Yep, my name is Tiffanie Demasters. I'm a part of People's Insurance Agency, and that is a part of People's Bank. So we do everything there. Insurance, banking, investments, you name it. But I focus on insurance, and I guess that's why I'm here today.
Yes, we are going to talk about insurance, and I know that's not necessarily a sexy topic. However, trust and believe before you hit skip or next. Tiffanie is super fun. That's why we're friends, and she also is my personal insurance person. We are doing some things with the office right now, so I have a ton of paperwork for her in my car as we speak. So I can attest that she is amazing, and she knows a lot of things about a lot of things. Well, all the things insurance related, really.
Yeah, we were just talking about how we don't like the word expert, and neither one of us claim it, but maybe there is some expertise in there somewhere, right?
Yes, expertise and expert are two, they're synonymous, but they're different. And self-claimed experts are really morons. So, I don't like using that term at all anyway. But anyway, she knows a lot of things about a lot of things. How's that?
I can be on board with that.
Okay, check. That is approved. So one of the things we wanted to talk about, we were kind of talking about this beforehand. We are recording during the global pandemic here, the coronavirus, COVID-19, the coronas, however you've been referring to it. And a lot of small business owners, and even big business owners, Gold's Gym just declared bankruptcy yesterday.
𝐀𝐒𝐒𝐿.
Yeah, there's a couple colleges in the area that have closed permanently because of all of this. So if you are listening and you are a small business owner, big business owner, there were the PPP loans, which a lot of people have applied for, and up until this point, not many people have actually gotten, so they're still kind of scrambling to figure out how to pay their people, how to pay their rent, their mortgage, how to keep going. Insurance, is there any kind of coverage that people might have lurking in their policy or could get that would help with something like this pandemic? Is there anything that exists? You mentioned there might perhaps be.
Might perhaps be in the future is my quote-unquote expert opinion at this point. So anytime there is a loss of income after a claim, it falls under business income coverage. Most policies, especially for small business owners, have some kind of business income, lost income coverage built into the policy. The caveat, and what I've been hearing from all the real experts out there, is that in order for business income coverage to apply, a physical damage has to occur.
Okay.
So now the debate becomes, is the contamination of coronavirus a physical loss or not? As far as I know, all insurance companies have initially declined or are still investigating, and because of that, there's been legislation in at least 35 states as of yesterday, and all states have different rules regarding insurance, but they're all kind of focusing on same things. There's different allegations. The ramification of any one of these suits affecting the insurance industry is huge. And so my guess is, well, even to back up a little more than that, on top of the lawsuits that are pending, the government is also trying to get involved and encouraging their insurance companies to pay. So with the legislation, with the government interaction, and insurance companies are on opposite sides, there's going to have to be some give somewhere. And so that's been my recommendation for every one of my clients. It's like, right now, there's no coverage. We're going to go with that instinct. we can help you with other options. Since we're bank owned, we have PPP funding. I'm going to just throw out there that we were number 1 in the state of Ohio for getting our people funded.
That's People's Bank, everyone.
But outside
Link
of that,
below.
right? Outside of that, you have got to be ready. Every small business owner has got to be ready if something does happen. Same with the PPP loans. The first people in were the first people to get it. If some kind of intervention does come, the people who are first in are the ones who are going to collect on it. So
how would someone be ready? Like, what are the things that they need? Because I'm sure there's a stack.
there is, but the biggest thing is that you have to be able to document when the lost income started, what your income maybe was the year prior, the month prior, and then what the difference has been since the onset of COVID-19. And in addition to that, what steps you've taken to mitigate any risk. So many restaurants around here have pivoted to doing carry-out and delivery and all kinds of different things. So as long as you're taking action or showing that you've taken action to try to make it not as bad and that you have demonstrated a loss, if some kind of legislation comes down the pike, you will be more ready than most people. Because most people are just like, well, I mean, I've been one of them. Sometimes you just shut down and you can't even process what's going on. So being on top of your records, you know, just like insurance is super sexy, accounting super sexy, you've got to be ready. And I think that's the biggest thing. And your insurance agent probably has had the same conversation. Most of the people I'm talking to are. We're trying, we're pushing because, you know, nobody wants to see businesses shut down and business income, lost income. It's not clearly defined, but, you know, we want our people to be successful and we want to help them however we can. However, at the same token, we know that the losses that the insurance companies would pay for business income would
probably be huge.
It would bankrupt them because they haven't been collecting enough premium to account for a global pandemic.
Yeah, I mean it's been 100 and some odd years since anything like this had happened before.
Yeah, and I think there was like 6 insurance companies then or something.
Yeah, so you know I don't want to say nobody saw it coming because you had people kind of on the outskirts that said, you know, we should probably prepare for this, but I think they weren't necessarily acknowledged as, you know,
sane.
That's
Conspiracy theorists.
Yes. So
so that was a long answer, but just keep your records. Keep your records. That's like
have
anything.
them handy. And if you are a receipt in the shoebox type of person, perhaps, you know, little bites now to try and get those things organized. Because that's my husband's company. He had applied for the PPP loan, and he and several other business owners that I've talked to got everything, like all their documentation ready so that when those portals opened, they were the first ones there, because it does take a minute, you know, even if you're organized, it still takes a minute to cross all those T's and dot all those I's because they ask for a lot of information. So basically, it sounds like your insurance agent could be your best friend right now. So maybe if you have not had this conversation with your insurance agent, send them a note, give them a call, and see what types of coverage you have in place, and you know, just have a conversation with them and see what they suggest based on your particular business and your particular coverage, because it'll vary from thing to thing. And actually, that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about because you know, different businesses have different functions. You know, maybe some of them own real estate and machines. Maybe some of them rent. Maybe some of them have full-time people or a bunch of part-time people. What type of coverage do businesses need? Because, you know, it's a good idea to have coverage.
Absolutely.
How do you know what you need, and what are some standard things that people should ask about?
So most businesses need some kind of property coverage and some kind of general liability coverage. General liability is the most common for any business. Anybody who is in business has a liability going in. Somebody can come onto your property and get hurt. You can do damage to someone else's property while you're out there working on it. So that's going to cover you regardless. Standard policies come with $1 million per any one claim up to normally a $2 million aggregate for that claim period. So that's the very most minimum that somebody would want to carry. And depending on the type of industry, the rating will differ. So the biggest things that they're going to look for is your sales, your payroll, and what you're doing. So those kind of all go into a pot, and they come out with a number. Any more, you can't find a minimum premium policy under 500. There are a couple out there, but 500 is kind of be your most minimum normally. And then property coverage, you can normally tie in with your general liability for most small businesses. It's called a business owner's policy, or a BOP, you'll hear. And the property coverage comes with that too. So even if you don't own property, like the building, you probably own your laptop or, your office furniture, whatever's in there. So that can be considered or can be added on very inexpensively. I think I just did $10,000 of coverage and it was like $20 a year. So it's not much.
It's affordable, so don't convince yourself you can't afford it. Definitely have a conversation.
Yes. And then once you add that property coverage on, then you can add that business income. And I would recommend that 100% of the time. Yeah, we just had this conversation about how Corona is not covered at this time, but in the event, common events we see, water loss, fire, it takes a little while to get rebuilt. So that's going to cover you while you're down. It's going to pay for your rent. It's going to pay to keep your employees going. And then when you open, maybe it takes a little while to get back up to those levels where you were at before. It's going to cover that too. So that coverage is very, very important. I think there's a stat that's like once a business goes out of business, or once they shut down for more than it was like 6 weeks, the chances of them opening or not opening are like 90%.
Yikes.
So it's
is that insured versus underinsured or not insured? Like, or is it just
in general? Once a business is shut down and people kind of forget about it, the 6-week mark, that's kind of the magic number. So when you are insured, at least it's going to give you that fighting chance to get back up to where you were.
Yeah,
and it could make the difference.
Yeah, no, and that's good to know. That's actually kind of a scary number. I didn't realize it was so high. I mean, it makes sense, but that's not great. We live in Tornado Alley, and there are still some businesses that are kind of in the lurch after the Memorial Day tornadoes last year. It hasn't quite been a year yet, but up and down Dixie Drive, there's a lot that have tarps for roofs, and
it's scary. And it's just, insurance is one way to mitigate your risks. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other things you need to do, but it's the easiest as far as I'm concerned. You tell us what you've got, we give you a rate, and then you can make the decision, obviously, if what the protection you feel like you're getting is worth what you're going to pay for it. So that's kind of the basics I would say people always need to have. Then depending on what your industry is, there's professional liability. And I know we talked about it at your marketing. Anytime you're making recommendations about a product, about what you're selling, and it's not a physical product, you're on the hook for your professional opinion. Same as a doctor, an attorney, an insurance agent. We're giving you our opinion as our work, for our product, for lack of a better word. Your professional liability is going to cover that. And that more people have that risk than you would ever know. So for the longest time, it was like contractors, for example, like an HVAC guy. He installs the HVAC. There's no professional recommendations. Well, a couple years ago, we saw one come through, and he had decided to move the ducts mid-job because there was some concrete up in the roof structures that he didn't want to mess with. So we changed it, and it failed, and he was sued. And they came back that it was his professional opinion that they could move the ducts he didn't have any engineer or anybody to back him up on it, because he's been doing it 20 years. He knows what he can and can't do. But they denied coverage because his professional opinion of them moving it was the cause of the loss and not the actual failure of the work itself. And he could have had it. He didn't. It wasn't my account, thank God. But now it's something our agency, especially because it was one of our agency's clients, we recommend it every time. And I think to add it on for like $1 million, it was only, like in that particular case, it would have only been maybe $1,000 on a $20,000 policy. So it's not, it's not that much more. I know it sucks. I mean, I'm always like, oh, it's not that much, but I'm not the one paying it.
Yeah. Well, but, on the flip hand, and I was, growing up, my parents were always, pushing insurance and being responsible and mitigating losses and damage and perceived losses and damage. Like, I'm pretty sure I was the only person in college who had renter's insurance.
That's awesome. I had it too.
So, so that's always kind of been in the back of my mind that I need to be prepared should something happen, because let's be honest, bad things happen to good people, and sometimes you're just out there minding your business and some moron runs a red light and plows into you. True story, that happened to me 2.5 years ago. Nearly totaled my car. I mean, you're just doing your thing and somebody else does something. If you have a business in a building that's a shared space, like people on different floors, or like a store in a strip mall and there's people next to you, and there's, a fire and somebody adjacent to you, or even like 3 stops down, if it happens, at 2 a.m. and nobody gets it in time, someone else's mistake could cost you your business, your contents, the ability to operate. So that's always been something that's been in the back of my mind. Like, I have to do, even if it's not required, like, I need to do that, because I would much rather pay a little bit every month than gamble on never needing it and then something huge happens and, I think my policy taps out at like $2 million, maybe, what we've been talking about. So, if I had to pay some motherfucker $2 million, I'd be like, I don't think so. I am moving. I am leaving the country. Good luck finding me.
It's like, good luck taking it out of whatever I don't have.
Right. Like, can you get $2 million out of these seashells? I think not. How much can you squeeze out of these coconuts? I don't think so. So, but I am prepared, is my point, so that if something terrible happened at some point someday, I would be covered. I have a great partner to help me defend myself, defend my business against, some kind of allegation or some kind of loss. So, having to not go through some of those things by yourself is also really, really great, because I'm good at what I know. But this is why you're here.
Yep.
You're good at those things, so you can quickly come in and say, this is right, and well, they can't do that, and that's why you pay for an expert to help you with things. I'm sorry, there's that word again.
I know. Well, I'll take it as long as it's not me saying it. But the best part, well, I don't know if it's the best part, but one of the good things about an insurance policy, it is a built-in legal defense. If someone sues your business, there are very few instances where the insurance company doesn't have to defend you. So yeah, you're paying $500, $1,000, $2,000 on a small business a year. But I mean, if you have something come up, your attorney fees are going to cost you that in no time without that insurance policy. With the policy, it's covered as part of it. And that's worth its weight in gold to me. If you have employees, there's a coverage called employment practices liability, and I recommend that everyone get it, because that's what's going to cover you in the event of wrongful terminations, harassment, discrimination. And we're going to assume you're not doing those things, but it's going to protect you in the allegation of it. And that, the stress alone, it's worth it to me.
Well, and one thing people may not realize, anyone can say anything about anyone, and whether it's true or not, you still have to prove that you didn't, like, you still have to defend yourself. Whether you did it or not, you still have to go through the process of defending yourself. So,
and the bigger the business is, the bigger the target normally. So as a person, yeah, good luck getting anything from me. But, as a business owner, they look at the business and they think you have deep pockets, and they, wrong or right. That's the way it is anymore.
Yes, we are a very litigious society anymore. So what are some types of coverage per industry that are important? Like we talked about, contents and professional liability. If you were like a boutique somewhere, a shop, and you had like candles or clothing, how would that coverage be different from like an office environment like myself? We're a marketing firm, so we don't really have physical, tangible things to sell, but we have our computers, you know, we work on things for other people. So where are some things, you know, where like a shop would differ from an office type of environment?
Yeah, so the policies are pretty similar in those two, but you've got to make sure you talk to your agent about what's covered in the event of a covered product and your contents. So in the event of in the instance of a retail shop, their contents is everything in the store. But some policies consider that stock as opposed to contents. And most policies use the terms interchangeably, but some don't. And so you could be paying money for coverage you don't even know for sure that it's going to respond. So it's important to make sure your agent knows exactly what you're doing. They're asking the right questions. And then when you get it, I know people get their policies in the mail and they don't open them and they just set them to the side, and I'm not making any comments.
She's giving me the eye. You can't see it, but she's giving me the eye.
But you're not alone. And the thing is that at least review the first few pages that have your personal information on them and make sure those keywords are covered. So that's one little thing you can be sure of. We talked about the professional. The other major coverages that we want to make sure is there's a lot of people making home products, candles, or organic, bug spray, stuff like that. So you want to make sure those, especially anything that goes in the skin, a lot of times is going to be excluded on a normal policy. So we need to make sure that, again, your agent knows exactly what you're doing and what you're making, and that way there's going to be coverage. So anymore, most small policies, we go online and we rate them. It's a very easy system. Pretty much anybody can do it. They offer training, and I'm like, why? It's like any other website. No offense. But anybody could go on and do it. But the thing is we can't see all the definitions and everything associated with it. So you got to have someone that knows what they're doing to make sure they're rating it right. Because if your agent goes in there and rates it wrong, and you pay for it, and then a claim happens, yes, you can come back against your agent, but it's going to be a lot longer of a road to make sure you're going to get coverage. I mean, that's the biggest thing I would say.
So basically, instead of maybe just doing one of those quick, check some boxes on a website thing to get your coverage quote, which is probably fine if you're just doing straight car insurance for yourself. But when you're talking business insurance with all the variables, it would really be the best idea possible to connect with an actual person, tell them a little bit about your business and how it operates, and have a conversation with them so that they can make sure that you've covered all your bases.
Absolutely. So I don't know about you, but I see insurance agencies pretty much on every corner. They will advertise out front that they do home, auto, life, health, business, and that's great. Our agency does all those things too, but to have one person that does all of those is just impossible.
So you really want someone who focuses on business insurance,
yes,
as opposed to like all of them and catch all. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So I can do a home and auto policy, and I've done it. It's definitely not my expertise, so I rely on others for help. But as far as business comes down to, I've got it. But then there are some specialty industries, oil and gas, huge car dealerships. We have other specialists in our agency. So if I have a contact and they want to work with me, I'm going to pull someone else in because, we want to make sure they're covered the best way possible. And that's what you need to feel confident that what somebody's telling you is believable. There are so many options out there. If you've been with the same agent for years and you're not feeling that warm and fuzzy when you talk to them, you're not confident that what they're telling you is real, it is time to look elsewhere. I'm not one that would propose shopping every year because you get a bad reputation with underwriters that way. But at the same time, every 3 to 5 years, or if there's been an issue, there are way too many other options out there for people to not seek alternate opinions. And people with, better attitudes.
Well, and one thing, working with someone who's been in the business for a minute, things change, the way insurance works and how they see different coverages and what's added and not. We have an Airbnb, and we had tried to do, it's like an Airbnb for cars. What was it, Lyft?
Yeah.
No, where we rent our car out.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I don't remember what that was. We had actually looked at that as a legitimate business, and because Airbnb and the other thing was so new, it was a hard time with insurance agencies to try and figure that out. Like, well, how exactly does this work? So that's a story for a different day. But because these things do change as technology changes and our culture changes and things like that, having someone who's been in the business for a minute and knows those things is very helpful, because so many different nuances. Like, I've had other insurance agents before, so many different nuances, and you've made so many recommendations to me. I've been like, oh God, I need to get this fixed. And that's part of why I have that big stack of paperwork in my car for you.
For yourself.
I mean, I don't want to say for yourselves, but I became a little bit concerned that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, because you know way more than I do, and so you're telling me these things. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. I need to address this problem. And so that's where, well, not problem, but potential problem. So, that's good. Where's your operating area? You do Ohio. I do Kentucky?
Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Tennessee is where I'm licensed. Mm-hmm. I'm working on Mississippi. But our agency's licensed nationally, so we can help anyone anywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's been... we've got places down in Florida, out in Colorado, California, so we're all over the place. Mm-hmm.
But if you're listening and you like what Tiffanie has to say, there's a link to contact her at the bottom here, and so she will be able to help you beyond just the Ohio area.
Absolutely.
So, and if you're in California and she can't, she has people out there who can.
And if you're in Hawaii and you need someone to personally come and
we
visit
will come
for risk
together and just check it out.
Yeah, I will be there.
She'll go for coverage. I'll go for user experience.
I've never written a lava zone, but I can learn real fast.
Oh, is that a thing? I mean, I guess that would be a thing.
Yeah, they have lava zones out in Hawaii, and I can't remember if it's
flood zone here.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember if it's higher or lower the number, the more chance it is. But yeah, the insurance is impossible to get in certain zones.
Oh my gosh! So do people live there just uninsured?
Yep.
Or
thank you, HGTV, house hunters.
Freaking house hunters, man! Don't sue me. I'm covered. Never mind.
Nice.
Okay, so are there any mistakes that you see people making? We just kind of mentioned mine. I thought I had the things covered that I needed, and then after talking with you, we found out that there were a few areas where I was a bit exposed, if you will, to potential problems down the road. Are there some common things that people maybe assume are covered that are not? What are some things people need to ask for?
So I would say the biggest thing, obviously, is read your policy. At least you don't have to read the whole thing. It's terrible. It's allegedly written at an 8th grade comprehension level. I spend an hour reading 2 paragraphs. And I made it past 8th grade.
I was going to say, what are we really saying here?
So don't worry about the policy, but the first few pages, the biggest thing is make sure the named insured is right. Mm-hmm. It seems very small, but so many times people either they maybe add an LLC after they started, or they have an LLC but go by their DBA. They have a company and then a real estate holding company, and they don't put both of them on the policy. Mm-hmm. That's number one, because if something happens and your entity isn't listed on the policy, there's no coverage, because that's who's insured. That's just an easy one. Making sure all the locations all are right on the policy. There's been so many times people move and don't let their agent know and have a loss at a new location. There's some built-in coverage for that. Mm-hmm. But after so long, it goes away, and it just presents a lot more issues. Yeah. So those are 2 easy things to make sure of. I see those mistakes all the time. But more than that, I think any more cybersecurity, cyber liability is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's not, well, let me back up. A lot of policies are throwing in a little bit of expense coverage. So $25,000 or $50,000 a lot of times is built in. Sounds like a lot, but it goes fast. So in the event of a breach, it's like $10,000 per record of expenses that you have to provide for people. So obviously that's not going to take long to go through. And so much is becoming, technologically advanced online that we don't even know what claims are going to happen because they haven't even been invented yet. Hackers, people stealing, the phishing scams, all of it. And it's been even worse with coronavirus. So that's a big one. It is normally, if anybody doing any business online needs to have a separate policy. In your case, because so much of what you do is online and you help people with websites and things like that, the professional and the cyber can be tied together, but that's not an option for every industry. So that's a big one. Umbrella coverage, typically to get an extra $1 million for small businesses only costs $500 or $600 more a year, which is.
And she's saying a year, so $600 a year is what? That's
$200
$200 a month.
No.
$50
a month. Ugh. And I was
We
captain
are
of the
not
math
math
team.
majors.
I was captain of the math team.
Shh, don't tell anybody that.
Now I can't do anything without a calculator.
Oh, I can't. So yeah, $50 a month. So she's giving costs in years.
Sorry.
But I mean, you can pay for a whole
Yes.
year, but you can also choose to pay monthly. So you're talking $50 a month to make sure that your butt is covered.
Yep. Those are easy ones. There's a lot more on very specific industries that you can get into. And I guess kind of that way, a lot of companies kind of have or insurance companies have niches that are niche. I never know.
I think it depends on the region.
We
can say niche and be fancy.
We're in the Midwest. I don't know
Pop
what that is.
pinky finger up.
Oh, it's niches then. But they have good rates for certain industries. So I have one company that loves daycares of all things, and I have another company that they like fire restoration. Well, that seems like a huge risk to me, but they like it. Another company that really has good rates for printers. So depending on your industry and then depending on the agent you work with, they have different different contracts with different carriers. So you can get a lot of different options and better coverage kind of looking around for that kind of stuff.
So again, having a conversation and better yet, building a bit more of a personal relationship with your insurance person will really be helpful to you and your business because you'll get more specifically what you need than maybe some stuff that.
Yes. And there's enough of us that if you dread talking to your insurance agent, find someone else. I don't know. I don't want to talk in stereotypes, but we're not always thought of the best.
Well, hopefully you are changing that today.
That's my goal. Changing the changing the industry one conversation at a time.
I like it. You should trademark that and put it on some t-shirts.
I need to call an attorney for that.
I mean, I know a guy, but anyway.
I listened to that podcast. He did a good job. And I would say the same way he says the attorney kind of comes in, not always at the beginning. Insurance agents are at the last person to know. I just reviewed a lease for somebody before she signed it. Now, granted, I have to clarify that I am not a legal professional, but pointed out some things that, her HVAC, she's responsible for that in her contract. So we needed to make sure there was coverage for that on the insurance. I wouldn't have known that if she didn't send
Wait, did I send you my lease?
Yes, you did.
I was going to say, I think I did, because we're in the process of moving right now. We had actually just signed the intent, so it wasn't the lease, it was the intent, because we have construction and build out going on. We had just done that like a week before quarantine went into place, so I've been a little stressed the last several weeks actually, because I have my office that I'm in right now downtown, and then we're going to be moving 2 blocks away to a new building and a new office, so that's being constructed. I still have my office downtown that I'm on the hook for, like financially, so I've had Mike, the attorney, review the lease, and then I sent that to you because, I do want to make sure that everything's covered. I'm also having my IT people go in and make sure that all my wiring is going to be where it needs to be. They're setting up to make sure the Wi-Fi is going to be strong in all the areas because I'm picking up some more square footage. Like it's
going to be beautiful.
Bigger. I'm really excited.
Those floors were gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, yes. If you are looking for someone to rehab original terrazzo, this was poured in the 30s. The building was built in the early 30s. Send me a note. I can give you a guy. Anyway, so yeah, it's important if you're moving or building something to make sure you contact all of your support people. And I would consider my insurance person, I would consider Tiffanie my support, like part of my support group, because she's going to make sure that my business is healthy and running as well as possible and can avoid potential pitfalls, because like we've mentioned, a whole bunch of stuff that could be covered that maybe isn't, or coverage that I have that maybe I don't really need, and just getting me the best results.
Absolutely.
So
we put them up there: insurance people, attorneys, your CPA, your HR, your marketing people. Those are your people you need to run by every decision. Every decision.
Yeah. Well, and
and especially if you're talking about adding a new service, adding products. Yes, call your insurance agent first.
Yes, it's better to have those conversations at the beginning instead of running into a brick wall later and then trying to backtrack, and that's just a mess.
Well, and there's so many different things so many different levels of experience of insurance people. So
you've been in it for a minute.
18 years, and my expertise comes in with all the additional training, but I have my certified risk manager designation. And so that's why I'm like, please, everybody reach out to me first, because if you're talking about introducing a new product line or a new service, not only do we have to make sure we're going to cover it right, but there's resources we can give you to help with make sure you're setting it up right from the beginning. So not every agent has that. That's why we're talking.
I mean, duh.
But it's there. We can do a lot more than just get you the lowest rate on your insurance. It's a lot more than that, especially for the business that you worked hard to build.
Well, that kind of ties into my next question, or well, not really next question, but next point. You had said insurance is not a commodity. It's not necessarily about getting the cheapest rate. You want to be prepared for anything unforeseen. You want to make sure you're covered. So can you expand upon that a little bit? That was your quote.
That is, insurance is not a commodity. One thing that we see time and time again is this is what my agent's doing. Can you beat this rate? I want an apples to apples quote. And nothing irks me more than saying I want an apples to apples quote, because first of all, there is no apples to apples. Every single policy is a little bit different. We can get close and compare and contrast, but we're never going to get you exactly the same. And the thing is most of the time, what you have is, if you haven't really thoroughly sat down and reviewed it, then it's probably not right. So my background for the past... So 2 years ago, I started selling everything. Before that, I was always on the back end doing the service. And I had to review policies and catch mistakes. That was my job. And I would say, and these are bigger businesses, $1 million plus businesses, and half of the policies were wrong when they would come in, at least. And that's not an overstatement at all. Major coverage is missed. And it's a big issue, and I know, in my experience, I think it has to do with just attention to detail, time. I mean, everybody's busy, need to do more with less, but it's a bad problem, and I 100% believe that there are a lot of people out there that are paying for things they think they have that they don't. I know that for a fact, and that when you're going after the lowest price, it is it's one of those things, you get what you pay for. And there's a lot of times where, somebody's not going to be the lowest, but it's going to be close. So I think I worked with somebody and I was at $500 and they were at $350. Well, in that case, it's so small, maybe it doesn't make a difference. But I'm working with one right now and they're at $65,000 and my quote is at $68,000. But I've pointed out huge gaps in coverage. For $3,000 more, to me it makes sense. Per year, sorry. For me it makes sense, but I'm still waiting to hear back from them. So it's just, you've really got to look at, I guess you really have to trust the person that you're working with to look out for your best interests and not cut corners. And you want to be able to know the insurance coverage enough without getting into the weeds. So that's why you really have to trust the agent you're working with.
Have you seen any examples of that where somebody thought they were covered and then they needed to file a claim and then they found out when it was too late that something wasn't covered? Like, is there any recourse for that? How often does that happen?
Yeah, the most recent one I saw come in was about, I mentioned before, employment practices liability. So somebody set up with a franchise that will not be named.
Probably good. I don't want to get sued.
And they have a non-compete agreement where they're not allowed to steal the same franchise as employees from like a different territory. So apparently they alleged that they had got another employee from this other for the same franchise, a different location, to come over and work for them instead, and the other company sued. Well, that's a hiring issue, and we had proposed that they take employment practices coverage, and they declined it because it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't super cheap. And then we had to tell them this is what it would have fallen under, and you declined
covered.
it. Well, they got very angry at us. And
clearly it was your fault.
Well, they, said we didn't explain it good enough, and that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you'd much rather someone else pay for your damage than you. So
nobody wants to have to stand up and be like, hey, I'm the dork that cost us all this money.
Right. So that's been really difficult. That happened last fall, and it's still ongoing.
Oh, wow.
So
and at that point, you can't help them now with this.
No. I mean, it feels really good when I'm like, well, we can add it on now, but it won't cover it. And, so there's, just like our professional liability, it covers any errors and omissions. And
good attorneys are not cheap. They're, $400 an hour at least?
Yeah.
So, and if you've ever tried to read an actual legal document, those take hours just to write, let alone phone calls and meetings and, case law and everything else. You could go hundreds of thousands of dollars in something that took, a year or two to get to court. So I don't...
Ugh. Yeah,
that makes my hands sweat. I don't like that one.
I think it would have been $3,500 a year for that.
And they'll pay probably 4 times that.
They've paid at least $50,000 in legal fees so far, for sure.
Yeah. Well. Okay, so definitely make sure that you reach out to an insurance agent. Again, I'll put Tiffany's contact info on the bottom of this podcast here, but whether it's Tiffany or whether it's somebody else, make sure you have a thorough conversation with someone who knows the ins and outs of coverage. Is there one last thought? If there was just one thing that you could say to someone who's got a business, what would that be?
Just talk to somebody. Make sure your agent is part of your personal board of directors. And if you dread talking to them, you don't have the right person, no matter what it is. You want to know that they're on your side, they're looking out for you, and you actually want to spend time with them. But your insurance agent should be one of your top people you're calling for things too.
Awesome. And I think that is a great place to leave it. This has been the Visionista.